There's this really strange paradox at the very heart of modern marriage. On one hand, our hopes for what it could be have honestly never been higher. But on the other hand, there's this deep, deep pessimism about whether it can even work anymore. It feels like we've kind of lost the script. So in this explainer, we're going to explore why that is and uncover a really powerful alternative vision for what marriage can actually be.
And all that pessimism, it leads to this one huge question, a question that seems to be on almost everyone's mind. Is marriage becoming obsolete? I mean, the very fact that we're even asking this question shows you that there's been a massive cultural shift.
And look, this isn't just some vague feeling in the air. The data is pretty striking. A recent Pew survey found that a full 40% of Americans, that's 4 out of 10 people, believe marriage is becoming obsolete. So what on earth is driving this belief?
Well, a huge part of the problem is a new kind of idealism. One with standards so incredibly high, they're almost impossible to meet. In a classic New York Times article, John Tierney listed some of the reasons his friends gave for ending relationships. And there were things like, she had dirty elbows, or she mispronounced an author's name. Now, these sound ridiculous, right? But they show just how impossibly high we've set the bar for finding a quote-unquote soulmate. Tierney actually coined the perfect term for this. He called it the flaw-o-matic. It's like this little inner voice that's constantly scanning, just looking for that one fatal flaw in any potential partner. The thing that gives us the perfect excuse to bail. It's really a symptom of a culture that's searching for a perfect person who, let's be honest, just doesn't exist. And this flaw-o-matic really comes from a major shift in what we think marriage is even for. Historically, marriage was seen as something that created character and built community. But today, we have what sociologists call the me marriage, where the entire focus is on individual gratification. It's always asking, what can this person do for me, for my personal growth?
I mean, that sounds pretty liberating, doesn't it? The freedom to just focus on your own fulfillment. But this is where the paradox really kicks in. Is this new model actually leading to stronger, happier relationships? Is it working?
Okay, so let's just look at the evidence. The common wisdom today says you should try before you buy, right? Live together to test your compatibility. But the data reveals something really startling. It turns out couples who live together before getting married are consistently more likely to get divorced later on. This really suggests that our modern consumer-style approach to relationships might have a fundamental flaw. The ethicist Stanley Hauerwas takes this idea even further with a pretty shocking claim. He says, we always marry the wrong person. Now, his point isn't to be cynical. His point is that you can't possibly find the right person because both you and your spouse are going to change. You're constantly changing. The person you marry today won't be the same person you're married to in 10 years. So the real task, Hauerwas argues, isn't finding the perfect match, but learning to love the stranger you find yourself married to down the road.
Okay, so if the modern consumer model of marriage is so shaky, what's the alternative? Well, the theologian Timothy Keller proposes a really foundational shift in our thinking. He says we need to see marriage not as a contract, but as a covenant. So what does that actually look like? Well, a modern consumer relationship is basically a contract. It's based on how you feel right now, and it only lasts as long as the benefits outweigh the costs. But a covenant? That's a completely different animal. It's based on a binding promise of future love, one that's designed to hold you together even when your feelings fade or the costs get really high. And this totally reframes the purpose of a wedding vow. See, in the covenant view, the vow isn't just you declaring your love right now. I mean, that's kind of the whole reason you're there. No, the vow is a binding promise about your future love. It's a commitment to act in a loving way, no matter how your feelings or your circumstances might change down the line. Keller explains this with this amazing metaphor from the Odyssey. To survive the deadly Song of the Sirens, Ulysses knew his feelings would betray him, so he had his crew tie him to the mast of his ship. In this view, marriage vows are that rope. They're a restriction you voluntarily place on your future self to protect you during the inevitable storms of a relationship, holding you securely until your mind and your heart, clear up again.
The structure of this kind of vow is often compared to an A-frame, like for a house. The two promises you make to each other, those are the angled beams. And on their own, they might fall over, but they're held up and given all their strength by a third vertical vow, a public promise made before community or before God. That public foundational promise is what gives the personal promises the stability to actually last.
Okay, so let's move on to the why of marriage. If marriage is a covenant, what's its purpose? It can't just be about surviving the hard times. Its true mission is something way grander than just personal fulfillment. It's about becoming spiritual friends.
So what is the mission? Well, in this view, marriage is a joint project of mutual transformation. The goal, the mission, is to help your spouse become their future glorious self. It's to help them become the person they were truly created to be, free from all the flaws and junk that hold them back today.
C.S. Lewis just nails this mindset perfectly. He says, Jesus died not because we were lovely, but to make us lovely. The idea is that this kind of love isn't just about admiring the beauty that's already there. It's a deep commitment to actively create beauty in the other person. It's a reflection of what Lewis saw as the very core of the gospel. Now, this kind of transformative mission, it requires a really delicate balance because you have to avoid two very common traps. Truth without love is just harshness, right? It's constant criticism. But love without truth, that's just empty sentimentality that actually lets the other person stay stuck. To really help someone grow, you absolutely need both.
Okay, let's be real. This sounds incredibly difficult. So how do you actually do it? What is the power source for this kind of sacrificial, truth-telling love? I mean, where does the engine for this come from? So in Keller's framework, the psychological engine for this kind of sacrifice is the Christian gospel. And the core idea is this. If you can really truly grasp that you are both more flawed than you would ever dare to admit, but at the exact same time you are more loved and accepted than you ever dared to hope, that frees you. It shatters the need to constantly prove your own worth, so you no longer have to use your spouse to feel good about yourself. And that, in turn, allows you to truly love and serve them for who they are. There's a short parable that really drives home this concept of grace. A general's son embezzles a huge sum of money, and he's facing total ruin, about to take his own life. But the czar, the very person he wronged, discovers the accounting ledger, sees the catastrophic debt, and simply writes "paid in full" before signing his own name. It's a picture of a love that sees our absolute worst and chooses to cancel the debt anyway. This whole perspective completely changes how you see your spouse on your wedding day. You're not just committing to the person standing in front of you today. You are committing to the person they are becoming. It means looking at them and thinking, you know, as amazing as you look right now, you are headed somewhere so glorious that one day these beautiful wedding clothes will look like rags in comparison.
So, we end with this thought. Maybe our whole cultural obsession with finding the perfect person has it all backward. What if the real secret to a lasting, truly fulfilling marriage isn't about the endless search, but about the commitment? What if it's really about learning to truly love, serve, and help transform the imperfect, always changing, and often very strange person you're already with?